Nerdy is defined as someone characterized by an obsessive interest in something. Xbox, Marvel, technology, D&D, Lord of the Rings, escape rooms, Pokemon, Funko Pop, Star Wars, PlayStation, comic books, Magic the Gathering, Nintendo, Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers. All of that is Tech D Rob, host of the Nerd News Podcast, your source for everything nerdy.
I realize you guys are all nerds.
And this is the Nerd News Podcast.
Welcome to the Nerd News Podcast. I am Tech D Rob, your host for this maybe 30-minute podcast. But anyway, I got what I got for you today. To be completely honest with you, as of Friday, my life has been just Legend of Zelda, and I'll give you my impressions on that a little bit later on in the Nerd News Podcast, along with a little more in-depth review of the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, as I've seen it twice now. And spoiler alert, it's incredible the second time as well. So, all that and more coming up in just a minute on the Nerd News Podcast. But you know how we always start the Nerd News Podcast. We give you the upcoming things that are releasing. So on PlayStation 5, PlayStation VR 2, PlayStation 4, PlayStation VR, and PC, we have Humanity, that is out as of today. Starship Troopers Extermination is on PC tomorrow. Thursday, Firmament is on PC and Mac. And Thursday as well, the Outlast Trials are on PC. And then Lego 2K Drive on current and next-gen PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, and PC as well. That is on Friday. And on DVD today is Quantumania. Not a very good movie, to be completely honest with you. Not bad. If you're a big fan of Ant-Man, you'll love this. If you're a big fan of Kang, he's in it. He's nowhere near as good a villain as the High Evolutionary, which I'll get into later on. But it's available on DVD today. As of tomorrow, however, you can watch it on Disney+. Digital releases, like where you can purchase like rent at home type situations. Mario Brothers and Sisu, which is the Nazi story that is similar to a John Wick type movie. And then in theaters this Friday is the first of a new trilogy of the Fast and Furious movies. So this will be if I'm counting properly, this is the 10th movie, so that would make it the 4th trilogy if you're counting them that way, which I don't. I simply refuse to call them that. But Vin Diesel did let slip that the final installment, Fast X, Fast 10, whatever you want to call it, is set to be a trilogy, potentially. He was very mum about the whole subject, so we'll see. But that is the quick hits on the Nerd News Podcast. And before I take a break, this is a combination of two things that I tend to do. So this is the new Mountain Dew. I'm trying to get it where you can see the name. Summer Freeze. This is the zero sugar one. I'm going to give it a little taste test for you. If my fingernails decide to cooperate, man, I bite my nails, to be completely honest with you. And I'm regretting it right now. Well, I could have pre-opened this, but this is real life stuff. This is how things work for me. Golly. All right, here we go. I don't know if you got any ASMR there with the. You're welcome if you love it. If you hate it, I'm sorry. But if you look at the can, you'll see a little looks like those or not necessarily bomb pops, rocket pops. The red, white, and blue popsicles from your youth. I mean, if you had a good youth. And I'll be honest with you, that's what it tastes like. It's pretty good. I don't hate it. I will drink more. Oh, I actually need to send a friend of mine some money for those. I keep forgetting to do that. So hopefully, by the time I'm done recording this podcast, I'll remember to do it and send him the money that I owe him for this. Anyway, that's the quick hits and a little sample of some of the other things that I tend to do on video. So that is this is a yes for me. I will be drinking this. This would be a good way to do a hard Mountain Dew, which is not available in North Carolina or South Carolina yet. Thankfully, I stocked up on a couple of them when I went to Virginia a couple weeks ago. But anyway, that's the first segment of the Nerd News Podcast. I've gone entirely longer than I usually do. And on that note, I'll be right back.
At TechD_Rob on Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch. More Nerd News Podcast next. Follow Tech D Rob on Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch at TechD_Rob. This is the Nerd News Podcast.
Welcome back to the Nerd News Podcast. I am Tech D Rob, and I would normally tell you to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch. I will say Twitter and Instagram. Twitter not so much, but Instagram, definitely follow me. The reason I'm not saying Twitch right now is because my life has been taken over by Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. Is it Tears or is it Tears of the Kingdom? Either one I think would work. I don't know that I've ever heard it said anywhere other than like people saying it. But I will call it Tears of the Kingdom to be, just what everybody else is saying, just to be safe. Perhaps those people know more than I do. I shouldn't have drank that Mountain Dew because now I got the burps. And I'm hoping that doesn't translate to this podcast. But anyway, the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom has taken up my Friday afternoon until I played D&D, my Saturday afternoon until I went to go paint D&D miniatures, my Sunday I went to go see my mom for Mother's Day, and then I came home and yes, you guessed it, I played Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Now, as of this recording on Monday, May 15th, I haven't played it today because I didn't think about it, to be honest with you. For some reason, my day, just a quick run through of what my day consists of in the Ace and TJ show. I tend to leave the show sometime around 11 or a little bit before, make my way home, and upload to Vimeo for anyone who is an Ace and TJ Prime member. So you get commercial-free versions of the Ace and TJ show, the Extra Funny podcast, and the extra funny segment of that. And that's the video versions of those. And the audio versions are automatically taken care of when I upload the regular podcast that you might get on iTunes or Google Play or whatever they call them now. But anyway, so I have to let those upload, and my computer's pretty much out of commission while that happens because I don't want to slow it down in any way. And I don't want to, risk these uploads taking hours. And I mean, the YouTube one is usually the longest one. It's about 2 hours, but I usually set my computer in here on a weekday, and then I go take a nap. And that's what I did today because it's old hat at this point. But then I realized when I woke up, I could have been playing Legend of Zelda. But the things were already done uploading, so here I am I'm doing this podcast for all of you lucky listener people who... I really do appreciate you checking out this podcast. More people than ever before, somehow. I mean, I rave reviews from people who have reviewed it. And if you have nothing nice to say, please don't tell me. But if you have nice things to say, send me a message on Twitter, Instagram, or Twitch. I would love to hear the nice things. It makes me feel good. Sorry, I saw an email pop up on my screen over here, and it distracted me. So when you take into account how much you like this podcast, things like that, do not factor them in, please. I would appreciate it if you just factor in only the good parts. Anyway, so let's get to talking about Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. So on Thursday evening into Friday night, long lines everywhere. I saw videos. It's the first time I've seen long lines for anything video game related in a long time. Midnight releases have gone away. I don't know if that was something when I was in my 20s, and even in my early or late teens, I wouldn't have thought twice about a midnight release. I went to the midnight release of Halo 2 with a friend of mine. I'm not even a big Halo fan, and I went to a midnight release. Call of Duty, I did all the midnight releases. I used to work at Best Buy in Gastonia, North Carolina, and I would work those midnight releases and go home and play the game afterwards. Play the game that was midnight released. I remember God of War being one of them. It wasn't the remake one. It must have been God of War 3, if I had to guess. And yeah, a midnight release was like it was my life. It's what I did. But now, a midnight release, when you can just stay at home and download the game and have it ready to go at midnight if you really wanted to, kind of takes the fun out of a midnight release to me. Like, I know people prefer a physical media rather than a digital one. I get it. I'm much more into the digital world than I am. I know people seem to think you're going to get cheated if you go all digital, and I just don't think that's the case. I realize they can revoke these licenses at any time, but it's just so much easier to download a digital version of a video game. Just like, with music, it's so much easier. And that's what I did. I spent and I know I probably talked trash about this last week, I think. But I did the thing where you spend $100 and you get 2 Nintendo games. So, thankfully, my niece is a Costco member, so I spent $90 on a $100 gift card. So I ended up spending only $20 more than I would have for just Zelda to get another game between now and the beginning of May next year from Nintendo for free. I mean, it's not free, it's $20. And I've debated on if I want anything that's currently out. But here's the situation I'm currently in. I have 4 video games that I have not beaten that I've bought recently. Excuse me. Dang, I don't know why I decided to drink a soda before I started this. It was a stupid idea. One, I never beat Hogwarts Legacy. I got really close. I believe I was going to the last mission. And fun fact, that's what happened when I played Breath of the Wild. I got to where I was going to fight Ganondorf. Just stopped. Can I explain the reason why I did that? I certainly cannot. Don't ask any more questions about it, please. But then I also have Resident Evil 4, which if you follow me on Twitch, you notice that I played it a couple times. And then I haven't been back. Because what came out after that? Star Wars, Jedi Survivor. And if you follow me on Twitch, you saw me play that a couple times. And I haven't been back. You know why? Because Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom came out. I have a problem, you all. I have a problem, guys. I am a video game addict, and I always like the shiny new things. And it's a real problem. I like the new games, and I get bored quickly. However, I don't think there's anything coming out in the close near future that's going to keep me from finishing Zelda, unless the game becomes more difficult than it currently is. But from what I understand, these new features in the new Zelda game have made the game easier simply because you can finish things in a variety of different ways. There's obviously ways that are kind of suggested to you, but there's the new fuse ability along with the new not fuse, the ultra hand ability where you can put items together to make like anything really. Allows you to solve problems in a variety of ways. And from what I understand, a lot of those ways are just people making very long bridges. I've done that myself a couple times on the game, and you know what? If it works for you, and it works for me. If it gets the job done, that's all I need to know. But yeah, the Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, it's incredible, to be completely honest with you. There's so much unique takes that you can do that someone else might not see at all. And the wildest part to me is I watch a lot of TikToks about it, and people have thought of things on there that I wouldn't even dream of thinking. And I'm sure, I'm not calling myself an innovator by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm sure there's things that I've done on there that somebody else hasn't thought of. The game is incredible. It's words don't even explain how cool this ability is. But yeah, that's all I really wanted to get into with Zelda, simply because there's not a lot, I can't give you a full review, but I can tell you I can tell the game's going to be wild. It's insane. One of the first bosses I fought on the game required me to use the Ultra Hand ability, which I keep calling it that, but I haven't really explained it. So if you haven't played the game, the Ultra Hand ability allows you to grab certain objects and you can make them connect to other objects. What's the word? It puts like a glob of glue between them. It looks like, but you can take it off later. It's really, I'm not doing a great job explaining it. But anyway, what I'm saying is, you do that, and on this boss, you have to grab a part of the boss and yank it out with the Ultra Hand ability, trying to make you be a little more innovative in your strategies from the start. And I think, now that I've just thought about this, to be completely honest with you, most of the enemies that have weapons, you can usually grab weapons with the Ultra Hand ability, so maybe you can do that with them as well. I'll have to try that out and get back to you next week. The sky's the limit in this Zelda game, to be completely honest with you. It's wild. And if you haven't yet picked up the game and you're thinking about it, GameStop has a deal that I don't recommend, but I'll tell you about it anyway, for trading in 2 of the following, or a list of 100 total different games, but these following games are for sure involved. Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp, Bayonetta Origins, Cereza and the Lost Demon, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, and that's the new version, Dead Space, Elden Ring, Evil West, Fire Emblem Engage, God of War Ragnarok, Gotham Knights, Minecraft Legends Deluxe, Resident Evil 4. Those are just a couple of the ones that were on the list. But you can trade in 2 of those games and still pay $20 for Legend of Zelda. So you're getting $25 for a game you spent at least $50 on. I don't know that any of these are less than $50. Yeah. To get $25 total dollars in return for a single game. Yeah, not a great idea. And for me, it's not even something I could do because I do all my games digitally at this point. So, yeah, if you're really desperate and you have these games and you don't want to play anymore, sure, it's not a bad idea to if you really want to get this game, because the game is great. It's incredible. It's innovative. I mean, I've never seen a more innovative game, and I don't think I will for a long time, to be completely honest with you. On the note of Zelda here, real quick, Disney is thinking about a Zelda movie now because of the great success of the Mario movie, which, again, you can watch digitally this week. The Mario movie made a bunch of money, so they're like, oh, maybe Zelda can make a bunch of money. You know what? You probably should have thought that when all of the games in these series do so well. The problem is that Super Mario Brothers movie that came out in the 80s or early 90s or whenever it was, with Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo, sucked. And they completely messed it all up. They completely messed up the possibility of already having these things given to us. We could have already had a Mario movie. We could have already had a Zelda movie. If not for that stain on the Nintendo name, on the Nintendo video game franchise name. I'd like to think that Sonic is the one that broke the barrier of, video game movies not sucking. And while I'm thinking about it, I can't think of anything else that would have been different. No, because the Resident Evil movies weren't great, and they were very liberal with their ideas outside of the video game stuff. The first Resident Evil movie was good. I'll give them that. I enjoyed it a lot. And I've seen all the Resident Evil movies, despite how bad they are. I've seen them all. I'm a huge Resident Evil nerd, which I don't know if you can see my Resident Evil board game over here. I guess I can see if you can see. I can move this real quick. Yeah, right there. Resident Evil 2, the board game right there. Huge fan of Resident Evil in general. They just, Paul W.S. Anderson or whatever his name is, just completely messed it up. Anyway, also on the note of Zelda, it is literally taking all the computing power of your Nintendo Switch to play this video game. There's a bunch of times I've been playing and you could noticeably tell it lags, slows down, because there's too much happening on screen. Despite that, Nintendo says there's not a Switch Pro coming this year. Now, that doesn't mean there's not one coming next year. They just said this year. I'm hopeful. Because it's an embarrassment that the Nintendo Switch runs so poorly when it's considered a next-gen console. It's embarrassing. I mean, I know the OLED probably looks better. I don't know that it runs any better. I would think it has the same computing power. It's just an OLED screen. And and I've thought about buying it, but I've talked myself out of it so many times. I don't play the Switch enough. I really don't. But anyway, that's enough about Zelda stuff. Let's see, other things I wanted to talk about. The Xbox Activision deal was previously blocked by the European Commission, but it has been allowed now. It has gone through. So we're one step closer to Xbox supremacy. I mean, it's probably not going to be a good thing in the long run, but I have an Xbox and I love my Xbox. So the ability for Xbox to put any Activision game they want to put on the Game Pass, I'm for. I'm 100% for it. I realize with the way EA took over the Madden franchise, that not having any competition in certain things is a bad thing for most situations. But I don't think that this will be the case, because nothing is like the only football game that can use these things. It's just the franchises are going to have to stack up against the PlayStation franchises. And will they, is the question. If they don't, people are still going to stick with the PlayStation. I don't think it's going to be nearly as crazy as EA buying NFL rights. I really don't. So we'll see. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I'm sorry. Potential casting news coming soon about the Superman Legacy movie that James Gunn is involved in. He's writing, directing. He's the DC creative head. I literally reached over to get a drink of something, and I almost grabbed this again. I'm saving that until after the podcast. Let's drink some water. There we go. Refreshing. But yeah, he was asked, because there's been rumors of someone I've never heard of playing Superman, Samara Weaving playing Lois Lane, and then what's his name? He was in Renfield, Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor. Now, here's my concern. Do we need Lex Luthor again in a Superman movie? We've had plenty of Lex Luthors. In the original Superman movies with Christopher Reeve, Lex Luthor was a thing. Gene Hoffman played him, I believe. I believe, and I could be wrong, Lex Luthor was in the Brandon Routh Superman movie. We know Jesse Eisenberg played him in the most recent Superman movies. We can lay off Lex Luthor for a little bit. I realize he's Superman's number one villain, but take a page out of Batman and build up to him. Like Batman built up to the Joker in the Dark Knight trilogy. The new Batman movie had the Riddler in the first one, and the Joker was in a jail cell, and talked to the Riddler at some point in the movie. Build up to these cornerstone characters and introduce them later. I realize, and they tried to do that with Shazam and Black Adam, but The Rock had to have a Black Adam movie, so it just kind of ruined the whole thing. But yeah, build up to these things. Leave them wanting more. Isn't that a thing? I don't know. But speaking of James Gunn, just real quick, I wanted to get back into Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I was going to do a spoiler-filled review of the movie. But on second run-through, I just want to say that if you haven't seen the movie, you definitely should. It may be my favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. I realize that I've said great things about Avengers Endgame. I've said great things about Spider-Man No Way Home. Both great movies. But both great movies that, excuse me, are culminations of things. And this is definitely a culmination of the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy. I'll give you that. But as a standalone feature film, I think this is my favorite. No lie. The soundtrack that James Gunn carefully and meticulously picked for this film, I've had on repeat for over a week. When I listen to music, I'm listening to Dog Days Are Over by Florence and the Machine. Very pivotal part of the movie. I'm listening to Space Hog in the Meantime. Very pivotal part of the movie. No Sleep Till Brooklyn. A very pivotal part of the movie. Since You've Been Gone by a band called Rainbow that I've never heard of before. It's on repeat. Heart. Crazy on You. What else is there? Creep by Radiohead. Incredible songs that on their own, worth listening to. But now, when I hear them, it triggers in my mind something that I've experienced in my life far more often than I can actually recall. But a song takes me to a place in my life. For example, I hear Ba With Da Ba. I'm in the back of my brother's red Ford Ranger that had been converted to an extended, like, they put a camper shell over the truck bed and cut out the back window and put in seats that I would ride back there with my 6-year younger than me niece, and we'd listen to Korn, Limp Bizkit, Kid Rock. But I hear Ba With Da Ba, I'm back in the back of that truck. And it's a core memory for me. Music is how core memories are triggered for me. And there's other examples that I just can't come up with off the top of my head. Another, and this is I'm a big Kid Rock fan, as you might be able to guess by this one. The Kid Rock album, The Devil Without a Cause, has a big middle finger on the front of it. I remember, and this I guess isn't triggered by an actual song on there, but I remember turning into work at the Wendy's in Belmont as an 18-year-old young man, and it flying out of my CD visor holder, which I stupidly pointed towards the window. I had the windows down, and I was cranking something with my subwoofers that I had in I want to say mine was probably, I also had a Ford Ranger. It's probably the Ford Ranger. The CD flies out. All I see is the middle finger going and crashing onto the ground on a busy street in Belmont, in the shopping area where, Wendy, if you're from the area, Belmont, North Carolina, where the Wendy's is. Across the street is a Waffle House. I took the right to get into the Wendy's, and it went flying out the left window. That's... music is a big part of my life, and that is partially the reason why Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is so special to me. These songs are songs that I already loved. You can't hear Dog Days Are Over and not get excited. Run fast for your mother, run fast for your father. I did not do it justice there. But you hear that, you get excited. You hear No Sleep Till Brooklyn, you get excited. Now, I'll hear these songs, and it'll take me back to this movie that I love. And I'll watch it again and again and again and again and again. And the movie is sad. It's happy. It's all the emotions. It's the emotional spectrum, as maybe you might want to put it. But it made me feel. It made me feel those emotions. Hearing these songs brings me back to those emotions. I'm an emotions guy. I love these emotions. It's the best way I can explain it is I put on these albums or these songs. For some reason, I can't find just the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 songs. I can only find the whole Guardians playlist. But the first few are from Guardians 3. Apple Music, fix it or something. Do something. So I stop when I get to Florence and the Machine, starting with Creep by Radiohead, the acoustic version. But I can relive this movie in my head. These parts of this movie that I loved so much I mean, 10 out of 10 movie. I thought, I know I said last week, maybe it's a 10 out of 10. It's a 10 out of 10. It's so great. But these songs, like many other memories in my life, will trigger me thinking of this movie. And they're songs that I love. And I'll listen to a lot. I'll think about this movie for years to come. That's why it's my number one, my favorite MCU movie of all time. Hopefully that changes. Not to knock on anything in the past or anything upcoming, but I don't think it will. The MCU is in a little bit of shambles right now, to be completely honest with you. Ant-Man Quantumania was supposed to be this big lead up to the new bad guy, and it sucked. It was not good. I'd like to give it another try when it's out digitally this week, but I don't know if I can sit through it again. It really wasn't that great. Wakanda Forever, really good. But not on, it was, I don't know if that made a noise, but on the scale of importance in the MCU, Wakanda Forever, not that big a deal, to be completely honest with you. Quantumania was supposed to be a big deal for the grand scheme of things. It just sucked. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, on the grand scheme of things, not going to be very important in the MCU, I don't think. But it's going to be very important in my heart. I'm kidding. But it is one of my new favorite movies of all time. It's that good. I mean, I realize it's hard to recommend Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 to somebody who hasn't seen the other ones. But I feel like anyone who loves movies should watch Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 and 2 so they can watch Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and put it in their top movies of all time as well. That's my thoughts. All right, that's enough for the nerd news today. I'm more long-winded than I intended to be. Ooh, boy, I've been recording for 30 minutes. That's a lot longer than I thought. I hope, if you're still here, thank you for sticking around. I do think next week will be a significantly shorter episode. I won't have nearly as many things to talk about simply because my whole life will be Legend of Zelda. But a full review coming next week for sure. And I realize there's a lot of times I talk with my hands, and I hope it doesn't distract. I don't know what to do with my hands right now. So that's a Talladega Nights reference for you in 2023. I need to just stop. All right. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you next week.
That's it for this week's Nerd News Podcast. Follow TechD Rob on Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch at TechD_Rob. Subscribe now. More nerd news next week.